I'm loud already, and I got two mics, so I'm extra loud. Thank you very much for having me here. Jennifer, I'm really grateful for the invitation. It dawned on me, I'm an old man, I look very young, but I'm about to celebrate my 50th birthday. And it dawned, thank you. This is a great crowd. And this morning I had a muffin. And it dawned on me when I got here last night that this is actually the first time I've ever been to Detroit and to the Detroit area, which is crazy. But anyway, so I'm really grateful for a lot of reasons to have this opportunity, not the least of which is that it's my first time to the Detroit area, and you've given me something else to check off my bucket list, so thank you very much. I had a student one time, and he had to give a talk, and before he was giving the talk, I went up to him and I said, "Hey, you know, let me see your remarks. What you're going to say? Let me see your speech." And he looked at me and said, "No, Mr. King, I'm gonna do it a cappella." Just like that. And I said to him, "No, you're not gonna do it." He meant extemporaneously, by the way. And I was like, "No, you're not gonna do it a cappella. We're gonna make sure you have something written down because I don't know what you're gonna say." So we went into a classroom and we made sure we had something written down for him to say. So I'm a bit of a stickler for writing things down. If you haven't figured it out already, I run off at the mouth a lot. So we're in a much safer space if I have written down what I'm going to say and I read it, which I have done. I've written down some remarks for this morning, but I hope you don't mind if from time to time I do it a little a cappella. So is that cool? All right, good. So there have been a lot of protests lately. We've seen marches and rallies and face-offs. We've seen these protests that have been sit-ins, and we've even seen some protests that have been sit-downs. The San Francisco 49ers, Colin Kaepernick sitting down during the national anthem is a protest. Rosa Parks sitting down on a bus is protest. Jackie Robinson saying that he would not stand and salute the flag. That's a type of protest. But marching and rallying and facing off and sitting in and sitting down, they're not the only ways to protest. Just as the violence that our cities, both Detroit and Chicago, are experiencing, or the election that we've all experienced, aren't the only things to protest. They aren't the only things that are really worth fighting for. A child navigating the mean streets to get to school, that's protest. A coach taking time to encourage a player, that's protest. A mentor, counselor, moderator, spending evenings, hours during the evenings and on weekends so that he or she can spark something in a youth, that is protest. Urban Prep is protest. The Michigan After School Association is protest. There's a poem, it goes something like this. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete. I said that that's a poem, and I think we can agree that it is, but it was written by a rapper, Tupac. And I think oftentimes hip-hop artists and rappers don't get a lot of credit for the poetry that they create, but that's an example of some really deep, meaningful words. And they are, even though they were written 20 years ago, they're as edifying today as they were when Tupac first set pen to paper. The story that's being told about inner city youth is really devoid of hope, not just because of the violence or paucity of quality after-school programs, but worse because there seems to exist a prevailing doubt that our kids, the young people we serve, deserve these kinds of programs, deserve these kinds of opportunities. But our kids, our roses, they do deserve more, and they prove it to us all the time. Every year, as you saw in that video, 100% of urban prep graduates get into college because every day we focus on the rose. We celebrate our students until they celebrate themselves. We mentor and grow them until they stand on a firm foundation of solid decision-making, and we believe in them so that they can believe in themselves, even when no one else does. The responsibility to do this is on us as educators and mentors and counselors and coaches and moderators and community leaders and elders, not to just wag our fingers or to preach to our kids. But it's our job to go to war for our kids. It's our job to be the protest for our kids, because if a rose doesn't grow in concrete, we can't blame the rose. When a situation is tough, we have to get tougher. When the problems are complex, we have to get creative. When the darkness is at its most despairing, then our faith and our belief must shine brighter and more defiantly than ever. When you see a rose fighting his or her way through the concrete, we should celebrate them. Their being alive in a time when we bury too many of our youth is a victory. We should feed them a knowledge of who they really are at the core so that they will know all they can be. And we should believe in them. We should believe in them until their self-doubt is drowned in a sea of healthy self-esteem. Students today have more practical problems in their lives than how to solve for X. How can we expect a child to make sense of algebra when he or she, as was the case with one of our students, is trying to make a sense of a world in which his mother is murdered by his father? Contrasted with the neighborhoods in which many of these students live and with the all too common one-dimensional negative portraits of inner-city youth presented by the media, we recognize a remarkable opportunity after-school programs have to be spaces where students come to explore and develop well-rounded, positive conceptions of themselves. We must provide young people with swords and shields. The sword is this high-quality education based on rigorous, culturally relevant curriculum that enables students to fight intellectual battles with the best of them. The shield is the self-confidence, self-possession, self-awareness necessary for protection in an often unfriendly and unforgiving world. Our young people develop these shields thanks to a school culture grounded in 4 elements that at Urban Prep we call the 4 R's: respect, responsibility, ritual, and relationships. And while these things are things that we do in school, they are frankly most traditionally the types of things and lessons that young people get in programs taking place outside of schools, the programs that all of you work with. Respect. At Urban Prep, our students wear a uniform. You saw it in the video. They wear a shirt and tie and a blazer each day. We use surnames when referring to them. They're Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones and Mr. Davis, not Paul, Rob, or Chris. This simple practice demonstrates a level of respect that young people rarely encounter in school and goes a long way towards inspiring them to think more highly of their teachers, their classmates, and themselves. Responsibility. We create an environment that promotes responsibility by utilizing a student code of conduct that is rooted in restorative justice and emphasizes student growth above all else. We set high expectations for student behavior, communicate those expectations clearly, provide students with the means to understand and internalize them, and hold students accountable for meeting them. Sound familiar? Sound like the kinds of things that you do in your programs? Ritual. If we expect students to behave, learn, and live differently, then we have to make sure they feel a part of something different. At Urban Prep, we start each day with something we call community. At this all-school assembly, everyone in the building comes together in the gym, And we come together to recognize young people who've done great things and to make sure everyone understands what we expect of them. Like all urban prep rituals, community reinforces the sense that the lives of our faculty, staff, and students are interconnected and that we are collectively responsible for the fate of each and every one of us. This is a cappella. One of the rituals that I'm proudest of at Urban Prep is during community when a senior is admitted to college. Now mind you, community is a gathering of everyone. We have 3 campuses. All of our students are African American males, 85% low income, 25% are special needs students. 95% or so come from single parent, female headed households. These are really tough kids who are frankly used to only being beat up emotionally and quite literally, physically, in their daily lives. And so every morning we gather in the gym. Each of our campuses is about 300, 350 students. So imagine you've got a gym full of young people standing there, hearing the announcements, learning about what is expected of them, and celebrating each other. And one of the special things that we do inside community is with our seniors, when a senior is admitted to college, we call him up in front of the entire student body, all the teachers, all the students, parents who show up to school on a particular day. And we tell everyone, this young man has just been admitted to this college. And we exchange his red uniform tie for a red and gold striped uniform tie. And that young man gets to wear that tie for the rest of his senior year. Now, this was just an idea I had as kind of a fluke because, you know, these guys were worrying me to death. Oh, why can't we wear our own tie? Why can't we do that? Oh, this is boring. And I said, oh, you know, I got an idea. Why don't we give them a tie when they get into college? I didn't really think that it would have the effect that it has. But like these guys go crazy to get these ties. Like they want to be the first person to get admitted to college so that they can walk around that school with this red and gold striped tie. When a young person is admitted to college and we call them up, we have had situations which have made me, I'm a lawyer, which have made me really nervous, where his classmates will pick him up on their shoulders and run him, not walk, run him on their shoulders to the front of the gym so he can get his tie. This is how excited this little thing has made these young people, this positive peer pressure. And you know, I said at the beginning of this, I said, you know, these are things that we do in school. But I know that they resonate with all of you because these are the types of celebrations you have in your clubs and on your teams and in your activities after school. These are the type of rituals that you engage in. You engage in getting students to understand self-respect. You engage in making sure that students are responsible. You engage in activities that promote and create these rituals that make these young people feel particularly special and belonging. And the last of our 4 R's is the most important. And I know it's the thing that speaks most clearly to everyone in this room. It's relationship.
Yes.
If we really want these young people to feel like they can do anything, if we want our roses to grow, the adults have to make sure that there are positive, supportive, nurturing relationships created. The relationships that you create with your students. When I look back on my life, there are people that pop up in my head. They are coaches, moderators, sure, my parents, but I'm not talking about my family and the role models I had at home. I'm talking about those folks like those of you in this room, who took care of me on the weekends and after school and early in the morning to make sure that I was engaged. The reason I can stand in front of you right now and speak to you is because, yeah, I got a great education. My parents were great in making sure I had a great education. But you know what? My number one activity in school was drama. So was my drama coach, who taught me how to do this. It was student government that gave me the level of confidence that I have to stand before you. It was these after-school activities that changed my life, the types of things that all of you engage in. Respect, responsibility. Yes, come on, give it up for yourself. See, that's what happens when I go a cappella. Now I'm all out of time. I've got 20 pages still. Just kidding. So respect, responsibility, ritual, and relationships. These 4 R's allow us to build a culture that provides these students with the swords and shields to battle a world of non-believers. And the Urban Prep Creed, which our students recite at the end of community, is the compass that guides them on their journey. The creed is inspired by our motto of "We Believe," and it's recited every morning at the end of community. The Urban Prep Creed is a clear articulation of the values that help inform the decisions our students make each and every day at school and in life. You try saying we are college bound every day for 4 years and see if that doesn't sink in. And when we fight for these young people, and I think you all know this, when we fight for these young people, miraculous things can and do happen. There was a student once at Urban Prep who didn't want to be there. Can any of you relate to the young person who's involved in your organization, yes, your school, your activity, doesn't want to be there? Yes. His mom dragged him into Urban Prep. You know, he didn't want to go to this school that was all boys, or they had to wear a uniform every day. And you know, something that I didn't point out is Urban Prep is a public school, a network of public schools, and so it's tuition free, and our students are admitted via lottery. Last year, we did not have a single student, we're 9 through 12, we did not have a single student entering the 9th grade who was reading at or above the 6th grade level. So these students come to us really far behind. They come to us with all kinds of disadvantages. And this young man was no different. He didn't want to be there, and his mom, you know, made him come, and he came in. And so while he was there, his name is Mr. Branch. While he was there, he did everything that he could to leave. He would cause fights, and he'd get in trouble, and he wouldn't do his work, and it was just ridiculous. And eventually, his mom came up to the school to transfer him out of Urban Prep. And you know, we were like, "Why are you doing this?" And you know, she's like, "Look, he's gotten in trouble too many times. I know that, you know, he's going to get in trouble, and one time is going to be the last straw, and you know, he's going to get put out, and I don't want that to happen. So we'll just transfer him. He doesn't want to be here." And so Mr. Branch, she transferred him out, and a little while later, we noticed something a little strange. After school, we would see Mr. Branch hanging out at our, you know, in our parking lot, or you know, on our grounds. You know, when we had basketball games or football games or whatever, we would see Mr. Branch in the stands cheering for the Urban Prep side. And one day, we walked into a classroom, and Mr. Branch was sitting in the classroom. You know, you're like, hey, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, well, I get out of school at 2:30. And so I thought I'd come by and see how my brothers were doing. Now, this is not literal brothers, these are my brothers. How my brothers are doing here, because we get out at 4:30. And you're like, sorry, dude, you don't go to urban prep anymore. You can't be in our classrooms. Eventually, he got up the courage to do what we understood he wanted to do. And that was ask if he could come back to urban prep. And I remember this. I mean, we have 3 campuses, and Mr. Branch attended our Inglewood campus, which is our first campus that we opened, and we have an office downtown, and as well. And Mr. Branch showed up downtown at our downtown office. I need to have a meeting with Mr. King. What's this all about? And he went on to say how he wanted to come back to urban prep and how he had a whole thing, how he was ready to come back and everything. Okay. And we let him come back because, at urban prep, we don't believe in throwing kids away even if they think they should be discarded. He, came back to urban prep, and maybe a year later, it might have been later that same year, we had this group of visitors from England at the school. And, folks from England, talk very fancy. So I don't know, but they just make you feel like, they're more important than they probably are. That they're very fancy. Anyway, and you know how you have guests in your house, you're gonna make sure everything is together. And so we had this all planned out. It was 30 educators from England. We had it all planned out, the exact route they were gonna go from the moment they entered the door, what classrooms they were gonna visit, the little Q&A we were going to have with them. We handpicked the students participated in the Q&A. We did not pick Mr. Branch. And we kind of do this tour. We get to the conference room to do the Q&A, and one of these educators asks, the students, what's your, talk to us about, what urban prep means to you, and something like that. And you ask a question, there's this pause, and then all of a sudden I hear, oh, I can answer that. And I look up, and it's Branch. Now, we let him back into school, but I wasn't exactly sure. I don't know how much I believe. And he proceeded to tell a story. And thinking about it even today, as many times as I've recounted this, makes me tear up. I mean, he stood there and he said, at that other school that he went to, they weren't telling him to pull up his pants or, straighten his tie. I mean, he didn't have to wear a tie, so they weren't telling him that. He said, they didn't care how I looked. They weren't telling me to live honestly or honorably or nonviolently like the Urban Prep Creed says. They didn't care how I lived. They weren't telling me, do you have any books when I was going home to do my homework? Because they didn't care about my education. He said, at that other school, if I stayed there, I would have been dead by the time I was 18. In fact, his words, not mine. In fact, I was dying a little bit every day there. Well, everyone is like, ooh. Mr. Branch became the quintessential urban prep student. He was engaged in every single activity he could be. He became student government president. He graduated from urban prep and gave a speech at graduation. He went on to Fisk University. He graduated from Fisk University. He was the first urban prep graduate to graduate from college. He graduated. I don't usually, it doesn't get me this bad, but he graduated from Fisk, and then he came back to urban prep, and now he works at urban prep. And he works at urban prep in admissions. And so he goes to 8th graders who don't want to go to urban prep, whose mothers are dragging them to urban prep. And he convinces them to go to the school that changed his life. There is a documentary that has recently been done called All the Difference. It chronicles the lives of two urban prep graduates, Robert Henderson and Krishan Branch. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it, I encourage you to check it out. It's called All the Difference. It aired on PBS, and you should be able to go to the PBS website and check it out. There's this and I'm wrapping up before I have a breakdown up here. There's and don't y'all tell Branch that I cried up here like this, because I have to work with him every day. So there's a line in a Drake song. So I mentioned some Tupac, and now I'm talking some Drake. How many people actually know who these people that I'm talking about? Okay, yeah. Make sure that, you got to know my audience. So there's a line in this Drake song that I love. It says, I'm the type to say a prayer and then go get what I just prayed for. I'm the type to say a prayer and then go get what I just prayed for. We can't just sit around and hope for something to change. We can't just wait for change. We can't just believe in change and think that it's going to happen. We have to get up and make the change. We have to create the change. We have to be the change. All of us in this room, we have to be the protest. The work that we do can be tireless and it can seem thankless. But our work is never, ever pointless. I know that sometimes we don't see the results of our efforts, of our sacrifices, because the real outcomes often happen in the distant future. We are digging wells from which we will never drink. We are planting trees bearing fruit that we will never taste. We are building ladders to the stars that we will never climb. But that's okay, because our work is not for us. Our efforts with the young people during and after school are not for us. All that we do is for the children, our little roses. And for our commitment to them, they will change the world for all of us. How do you grow a rose from concrete? By celebrating it every day, by showering it with praise, by nurturing its foundation with high expectations, and by shining the light of our stubborn and insistent belief in it. We must protest for our roses, fight for our students, and tell them with actions, words, and everything else in our power that the sky is not the limit. How can it be when there are footprints on the moon? Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong. It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but in keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete. Long live the roses, and long live our protest for all of them in and after school. Thank you.